What drives people to do that? They are very, boy, the word's not coming to me. Yeah, like, you know, you sneeze and somebody say bless you, and they yeah, yes, superstition. Thank you, Alicia. Superstition. Okay, they have all these superstition. Yeah, but they have that superstition. So it is that superstition where, when they have convinced themselves of a thing, they say, "Oh, when I put on my Tzitzit, I feel set apart. I feel the presence of Yah." I've been told that by people. Okay, I've been told that by people. But you see, that's no different than the guy on TV telling you that send me $50. The guy on TV telling you send me $50 and I'm going to send you this prayer cloth. Okay, because there is power in this prayer cloth. When in reality he's simply fleecing the people. And a superstitious people buy into it. Okay, it's the same spirit at work. Now you're making it out of the ordinances that were put in place as a shadow of things to come. Yes, have to be careful of emotions. Absolutely, a coat. You see, emotions drive many to doing things contradictory to the scriptures and false. So the problem is that they have that emotional ghost and that superstitious spirit. Okay. Now, so here though, going back to the subject. So here, forever in this verse, yes, he does. Forever in this verse is referring to the Levitical priesthood, and it is referring to the use of the bronze laver. Now, what was the purpose of the bronze laver in Torah? Again, it is prophetic. Remember earlier I said to you that everything in Torah is prophetic. Okay, everything in Torah is prophetic. Okay, and remember, there is nothing new under the sun. Going back to Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And so, what was the purpose of the laver in Torah? They were commanded, Masha was commanded to build this laver. Okay? Our quote wrote, they're always comparing themselves to Paul and his magic handkerchiefs and aprons. Yes, they always are. And you know, at that time, the Ruach chose to move in that way. It wasn't a matter of magic. They have turned it into magic. The Ruach chose to move in that way. And now they're making these doctrines out of these things. Don't know if you heard on the news this week about this guy that uses, and you know what's interesting, the passage that he uses from Mark chapter 16 is not it's in the Bible, but it's not in the original, any of the original writings. Okay, in Mark chapter 16, talking about drinking poison and so on and so forth, and handling snakes. That Mark 16, yes. Those verses, the final verses in that book, is not in any of the original manuscripts. It showed up in the 400s CE. Is when it began showing up in manuscripts. Okay, but it was not in any of the original manuscripts. But this guy, who has been teaching for years and have these snakes in his worship, in his service every Sunday, using them in his witchcraft, in his practice of witchcraft, you know, he used those passages to say that the scriptures say we shall handle serpents and they will not bite us, and they won't, and even if they bite you, they won't kill us. Well, this week he got bit by a cobra that he was handling in the service, and guess what? He's dead. Oh. Okay, very sad, you know. But he got bit this week, and he died. And the people I was listening to the news on the radio, and they were kind of mocking him. Pretty sad how people take things out of context. They take things out of context to their own destruction, the scripture says. You know? Yes, it's interesting. Would be interesting to see what happens, but you know, the reality is a couple of them might walk away from that now, but a lot of them will continue in it. Somebody else will take over, and they'll make some excuse as to why it happens, and they'll continue. You know?
She said people don't seem to get it. The people who did these things in the scriptures truly live set apart.
Yes.
Okay? And another thing is they were called to whatever that was. And if they were called to perform in that manner, that's because Yah made it so.
Absolutely.
Okay? It was for his purpose.
Absolutely.
But these people are trying to do the same things, saying, thus says Yahuah, when he ain't never told you from the door to go doing that thing.
Absolutely. 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 As my wife was just saying, you know, Yah chose at different times to use different things to speak to his people. Okay?
It's like all of these words, all of these letters, they all point back to him and his purpose.
Absolutely.
Folk go twisting stuff around and don't nothing go back to Yahuah, Yahusha, nobody else but them. And can I get a couple dollars?
Yeah. Certainly. You know, so okay, so now, so they twist these things, and they carry with them this superstitious spirit and this emotional ghost, okay, that leads them into all kinds of error. All right, but again, the context here in Exodus or Shamut chapter 30 is that of the Levitical priesthood. Now, so the question is, the word forever is used, but another key to let us know that forever here does not mean eternity. Another key, other than the fact that we know that that priesthood has been changed, so forever could not mean eternity, because if forever there means for all eternity, then we should still have the Levitical priesthood functioning today. We should still have the golden laver. We should still have the temple operating as it were. Everything that goes along with the Levitical priesthood should still be the same, but there has been a change in the covenant. So there is therefore no more temple governed by a Levitical priesthood. What is now the temple? Our bodies are the temple. Okay, there has been a change there. There was a change in the covenant, and several things took place. So now the temple is no longer made of bricks and mortar, but it is us. We are the temple. Okay, that's another change. There's a change in the temple. There's a change in the priest. There's simply a change in the priestly covenant, period. Okay, there's a change in the covenant, period. But these same people will tell you, oh, there has been no change in Torah. That is false, misleading, okay, false teaching, not scriptural, goes totally against the scriptures. Okay, but yet they're deceiving many. They're deceiving many. They're deceiving many. And it's people that profess to be studying the scriptures, but it is very obvious that they are not studying the scriptures. They're simply going by what somebody says, because somebody might have some charisma, or somebody might look deep, or might sound deep. I have no interest in sounding deep or looking deep. I just want to line up with the truth. You know, but they're following these people because they're dressed up and they look deep, and they're speaking a few Hebrew words, and in some cases it's not even true Hebrew, and they fall head over heels, never once doing what the scriptures tells them to do, which is to test all things to see whether or not it is so. Okay. And so now they're married to a lie. Married to a lie. People are always looking for a cheap thrill, and there are always enough charlatans out there who gladly will supply their needs. Certainly. None wants to simply say, I was wrong. Yes, that's pride, a quote. They are forming their opinions based on physical appearances. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And so now we talk about, and I started to talk about everything in Torah being prophetic, even the very name Torah being prophetic, because Torah points to Yahusha, okay, and what he would do, what he would come to do, okay. And so what we're talking about, the laver. What was the laver? Was prophetic. Prophetic of what? The laver was prophetic of immersion. Okay? The laver was prophetic of immersion. Physical immersion and spiritual immersion. Okay? Physical immersion and spiritual immersion. Okay? Because we have to be cleansed. Okay? We have to be cleansed. And our cleansing, first of all, true cleansing begins spiritually. And ultimately, it shows up on the outside.
Hallelujah.
Okay? True cleansing begins inwardly, and ultimately it shows up on the outside. Okay? I desire to wear my tassels, not because I must wear them, okay, but because on an outward basis, it does in a physical sense set you apart from the people around you. For example, let me say this: there are certain people in certain cultures. You have people here in America. You could look at, for example, an Indian person. And, I mean, if for nothing else, if you just saw did not see their head, their top, and just saw, like, midway bottom down, they're standing somewhere and you can't see the rest of them, but you see their clothing.